Imagine stumbling upon evidence of a miracle. Evidence that had remained hidden for almost 2,000 years, a discovery connected to the most sacred miracle of all. That is what happened to Secondo Pia when he made the first photograph of the Shroud of Turin. It showed an image of Jesus never seen before. Since then, many new revelations about the shroud have been made. What does it tell us about Jesus' death and resurrection? Are you curious yet? Dive with us into the exciting discovery of what might have been Jesus' burial cloth. Do not forget to subscribe to our channel for more updates on exciting archaeological discoveries linked to the Bible. The Shroud of Turin, an ancient linen cloth bearing the faint image of a man, has captured the imagination and curiosity of scholars, historians, and believers for centuries. This intriguing relic is believed by many to be the burial shroud of Jesus Christ, preserving an imprint of his crucified body. Its history is steeped in mystery and debate, prompting a wide range of opinions regarding its authenticity and significance. The shroud is linked to the city of Turin, Italy, where it has been kept in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist for centuries. However, its history can be traced much further back. The first recorded historical reference to the shroud dates back to the 14th century when it surfaced in the French city of Liry. At that time, it was already acknowledged as a cherished and venerated relic, though its actual origin remained elusive. It has been suggested that the shroud has a much older history, claiming it was brought to France by knights during the Crusades, or even early, in the time of the Apostles. However, historical records only provide a solid link to the 14th century, leading to heated debates over its true age and provenance. The Shroud of Turin has been at the center of numerous controversies. One of the most significant challenges to its authenticity arose in 1988 when radiocarbon dating conducted on a small sample of the cloth seemingly dated it to the Middle Ages, causing skepticism among some experts who concluded that it must be a medieval forgery. But many people were not convinced, even more so after recently discovered evidence that will be presented in this video. In this video, we will look into the competing claims about the Shroud of Turin. We will delve into the fascinating research and discoveries made over the years, challenging the assumptions of its detractors. Modern technological advancements, including high-resolution imaging techniques and forensic analyses, have offered new perspectives on the shroud's mysterious image. The historical trail of the Shroud of Turin possibly begins to emerge in the annals of time during the early centuries. The earliest known reference to a shroud believed to be the same as the one in Turin dates back to the 6th century. A manuscript written by Bishop Gregory of Tours mentions a burial cloth with an image left by Jesus after his crucifixion. However, the specific connection to the Shroud of Turin remains open to interpretation. In the subsequent centuries, multiple records, writings, and artworks from various regions and religious communities surfaced, indirectly alluding to the existence of a revered shroud bearing an image believed to be of Jesus Christ. These fragmented references provided tantalizing hints of the relic's significance, fostering intrigue and veneration. A burial cloth, which some historians maintain was the shroud, was owned by the Byzantine emperors but disappeared during the sack of Constantinople in 1204. In 1353 the shroud appears from the mist of history, and from then has a clear historical record. It turns up in the small town of Liry in France, owned by a crusader. There it became a celebrated object of veneration and devotion. In 1453, the shroud was transferred to Turin in Italy, where it has remained for the majority of its known history. The House of Savoy, ruling over the region, became its custodian and significantly contributed to its preservation and promotion as a symbol of faith. Over the centuries, the shroud's significance grew exponentially, attracting millions of pilgrims and fostering intense devotion, particularly within the Christian community. The relic was revered as a powerful representation of Christ's suffering, crucifixion, and resurrection, deepening the faith and spiritual connection of believers. The Shroud of Turin is a remarkable piece of ancient cloth of approximately 4.4 meters long and 1.1 meters wide. Woven in a herringbone pattern, the fabric is made of flax fibers, a material commonly used during the time of the 1st century Roman Empire. Its delicate and slightly transparent texture lends an ethereal quality to the cloth, contributing to its air of mystery. On the shroud's surface there are faint stains, most notably in the areas corresponding to a human body. Its central feature, however, is the enigmatic image of a man, front and back, imprinted onto the fabric. The image imprinted on the shroud is arguably its most captivating feature. Resembling a life-size negative photograph, the image exhibits both front and back views of a bearded man, with evident signs of crucifixion wounds on the wrists and feet. The posture suggests a figure who appears to have endured the agonizing act of crucifixion, complete with wounds consistent with those described in historical accounts of Christ's crucifixion. When the Shroud of Turin is compared to other historical relics and burial shrouds, it stands out as an extraordinary and unparalleled artifact. While numerous shrouds have been discovered in various archaeological sites, none have exhibited an image of such precision and clarity. The detailed representation of the wounds and the visible outline of a human figure distinguish the shroud from any other known relic. Moreover, the preservation of the shroud is remarkable, considering its estimated age. Unlike many ancient fabrics, the shroud has not significantly deteriorated over time. Despite its exposure to various environmental conditions and historical events, the image remains remarkably intact, adding to the allure of the relic. Many relics have attracted increasing skepticism in the run of history. However, for the Shroud of Turin it has been the other way around. More and more people are taking the possibility that the shroud is Jesus' actual burying cloth seriously. An important reason for that is a discovery made in modern times. The year was 1898, and the Shroud of Turin had already been a subject of intrigue and veneration for centuries. The shroud, housed in the Cathedral of St. John the Baptist in Turin, Italy, had attracted pilgrims and scholars from far and wide, seeking to unravel the mystery behind the faint image imprinted on its surface. In April of that year, the shroud was displayed for public veneration, drawing large crowds eager to catch a glimpse of this sacred relic. It was during this exhibition that an amateur Italian photographer named Secondo Pia had a remarkable encounter that would forever alter the course of the shroud's history. Secondo Pia, armed with his newly acquired camera, joined the throngs of pilgrims flocking to the cathedral. His primary objective was to document the shroud for his personal collection, but little did he know that he would capture an image that would astound the world. With great precision and care, Secondo Pia positioned his camera and took the first photographs of the shroud. When he later developed the photographic negatives, he was astonished by what he saw. Unlike any previous visual examination of the relic, the photographic negatives revealed an incredibly detailed, lifelike image of a man's face and body. What was most perplexing was that the image appeared as a photographic negative, with lighter areas appearing dark and vice versa, revealing intricate details that had previously remained hidden to the naked eye. The shroud's faint image, shrouded in mystery for centuries, suddenly came to life in the photographic negatives, leaving observers in awe and disbelief. The photograph soon caught the attention of the scientific community, sparking renewed interest in the Shroud of Turin. Scholars, historians, and scientists were intrigued by the high level of detail captured in the photographic negatives and sought to understand the science behind this extraordinary phenomenon. Pia's groundbreaking photographs challenged conventional explanations and theories regarding the shroud's origins. Until then, skeptics had proposed that the image was a result of artistic forgery or medieval painting techniques. However, the photographic evidence presented a highly detailed and three-dimensional image that defied any known artistic method of the time. The lack of visible brush strokes or pigments on the shroud further discredited the forgery hypothesis. The shroud's reputation as an object of scholarly interest and investigation grew rapidly. The captivating photographs caught the attention of the public and the media, generating widespread interest and discussion. Newspapers and publications around the world featured articles about the relic, further fueling the curiosity surrounding it. The endorsement of the photographs by Pope Leo XIII also added to the shroud's credibility. The Pope allowed the public exhibition of the photographs, implicitly supporting the relic's importance and authenticity. His involvement gave the shroud a seal of approval and encouraged more in-depth research and examination by religious authorities and experts. However, in 1988 research was done into the age of the Shroud of Turin that resulted in the shroud being seen as a hoax by most of the public. But is that right? In 1988, the Shroud of Turin underwent one of the most significant scientific investigations in its history, radiocarbon dating. The process involved taking small samples from the corners of the cloth and subjecting them to carbon-14 dating, a reliable technique used to estimate the age of organic materials. The results from 3 different laboratories, the University of Oxford, the University of Arizona, and the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology, indicated that the shroud dated back to the 13th to 14th centuries. This seemed to lay to rest any claim that the shroud really had been Jesus' burial cloth. While the radiocarbon dating results were initially considered conclusive and led to widespread headlines declaring the shroud a medieval forgery, they were met with significant criticism. Various reasons were put forward to explain why the medieval date might not be correct. The most important one was this: critics pointed out that the shroud had undergone multiple repairs and restorations throughout its history. The sample tested came from a corner of the shroud which very well might consist of medieval cloth used to repair the shroud. So the carbon dating cannot be used as the definitive answer to the question about the authenticity of the shroud. So is the Shroud of Turin real or not? This is not just an issue dividing skeptics and Christians. From its known historical beginnings in the 14th century, this question has been debated, with some Catholic bishops deriding it as a forgery. Christians have always been willing to take a critical look at the issue. And at the other hand, several skeptics who have studied the shroud have come to believe the shroud is not just evidence of Jesus' crucifixion, but even of his resurrection. More on that later in this video. According to the forgery theory, a skilled artist from the Middle Ages meticulously painted or dyed the image of Jesus onto the linen cloth to deceive believers. This explanation, however, runs into several problems. One crucial factor is the absence of any artistic medium or pigments on the shroud. No traces of paint, dyes, or any binding agents have been detected on the fabric, challenging the notion that the image was created through conventional artistic means. Furthermore, the uniformity of the image's coloration is amazing. If it were an artistic rendering, variations in hue and intensity would be expected due to the human hand's natural inconsistencies. However, the shroud's image remains strikingly consistent and exhibits a level of precision beyond the capabilities of medieval artistic techniques. One very strong argument supporting the authenticity of the Shroud of Turin is this: paintings are created using brushes or other tools. However, the shroud's image does not have brush strokes or evidence of any human-made marks. The image is only present on the top 2 or 3 fibers of the cloth, with each fiber being more than 10 times thinner than a human hair. There is no artistic process known that produces such superficial images, not now, and certainly not in the Middle Ages. Another modern-day discovery also makes it very unlikely that the Shroud of Turin was produced in the Middle Ages. Modern technology revealed that the shroud's image contains three-dimensional information, a characteristic not seen in any known artistic work from the medieval period. So to believe that the Shroud of Turin is a forgery, it has to be believed that the forger used a technology that would only show the true beauty of the image when photography was used centuries later, would have developed a novel way to depict three-dimensional information that was then forgotten for centuries, and would have found a way to produce the image so superficially on the fabric that no one ever found out how it was done. Of course, it is possible to believe that, but it requires a lot of faith. The Shroud of Turin has not only captivated the world with its mysterious image but has also offered intriguing medical evidence that aligns with the events of crucifixion. Researchers have meticulously analyzed the faint imprints on the cloth, discovering several key features consistent with crucifixion wounds. The wounds on the shroud correspond to the biblical account of Jesus' crucifixion, displaying marks consistent with scourging, a crown of thorns, and nail wounds on the wrists and feet. Crucifixion was a brutal form of execution commonly used during that period, particularly by the Romans. The positioning of the nail wounds on the wrists, which corresponds to the anatomical structure of the human body, indicates a precise understanding of crucifixion practices. The severity and position of the injuries suggest that the individual depicted experienced immense suffering and trauma, reinforcing the notion that the image represents a crucified person. Moreover, medical examinations have identified the presence of bloodstains on the shroud, which contain traces of human hemoglobin and bilirubin. The distribution of these bloodstains aligns with the body's position on the cloth, further corroborating the crucifixion hypothesis. Furthermore, the way the shroud envelops the body, with the frontal and dorsal images aligning as if they represent one figure, reflects burial practices of the time. In the 1st century, it was customary to wrap the deceased in a burial shroud, securing the limbs and folding the cloth around the body to create a continuous covering. The shroud's depiction of a wrapped figure is consistent with these historical burial practices. So both the improbability of an artist being able to produce the Shroud of Turin, and the anatomically correct way of depicting crucifixion are strong indications the Shroud of Turin might be the real deal. But does that also square with the cloth of the shroud? If the cloth would clearly have medieval characteristics, that would be a strong indicator of forgery. The size of the Shroud of Turin, while odd in modern measurements, could have been exactly 8 cubit by 2 cubit, the measurement used in ancient Israel. The weaving pattern of the Shroud of Turin is a very distinctive herringbone pattern, with one thread going over 3 threads all of the time. This had led to much discussion. While some researchers claim this specific way of weaving would only be possible on medieval weaving looms, others say it is characteristic of 1st century high-class cloth from Israel and Syria. One of the most intriguing modern research methods on the Shroud of Turin has been the study of pollen. Pollen analysis is a branch of palynology that involves the study of pollen grains, which are microscopic structures produced by plants for their reproduction. Pollen grains are lightweight and can be carried by the wind or attached to animals, including insects, birds, and mammals. When plants release pollen, it can travel considerable distances and settle onto various surfaces, including fabrics like the shroud. Studies have revealed the presence of pollen grains on the shroud that are consistent with plant species native to the region of Jerusalem and the surrounding areas. One source for the pollen was a plant that bloomed in Jerusalem between March and May each year. Several of the species of pollen found were from plants only present in the Middle East and never in Europe. The presence of pollen from various other plants on the shroud suggests that it may have been transported and used in different locations over time, as is consistent with the stories of the shroud making its way from Israel to France. There is strong evidence that the Shroud of Turin might be the actual burial cloth of Jesus. But why would Jesus' image be imprinted on his burial cloth? That remains one of the most enduring mysteries and has prompted various theories about its formation. Dr. Gilbert Reyes, a Belgian scientist, came up with the radiation theory in the late 1970s. Dr. Reyes was a professor of anatomy and forensic medicine at the University of Ghent and an expert in the field of forensic pathology. He suggested that a burst of radiation emitted during Jesus' resurrection might have caused the image formation. This radiation would have interacted with the linen cloth and left a faint imprint of the body's features. The unique features of the shroud's image, such as its three-dimensional quality and the superficiality of the image, are a good match with the radiation-induced imprinting. The radiation left a detailed and lifelike representation of the body's contours. All devices in the world together, according to research from Italian scientists in 2011, do not have enough power to produce the burst of energy needed to produce the image on the Shroud of Turin. The supernatural power present in the resurrection of Jesus Christ is the only explanation for producing the image. It would be unwise to build your faith on the Shroud of Turin. Yet there is strong evidence that the shroud is a material witness to the resurrection of Jesus Christ. Therefore it would be equally unwise to dismiss the possibility that the Shroud of Turin shows the exact moment God did the greatest miracle in the history of the world, raising his Son Jesus Christ to eternal and imperishable life.